ask you the same question I asked the other candidates, but I would be very interested in your thoughts on this. As you know, there's a migration of bank customers coming to credit unions to become members for a variety of reasons. In the banking industry, there's a continuing and increasing sourness, if you will, because they're losing all these customers. Not necessarily because they're losing the customers, but they're losing the credit unions. As you know, banks have for a long time advocated that credit unions should be taxed. Now, if you're elected, you're going to come under unprecedented pressure, more pressure than ever, to tax credit unions. How are you going to handle that?
Well, I think if you look at the analysis of where your leaders come from my rise from a little legislative seat all the way to the state auditor protecting $60 billion in assets, somehow managed to stay out of the fray when it comes to particular interests. So for the wonderful American dream to be running for the U.S. Senate as a former prosecutor and a lawyer from Wagon Mountain, where for many years we had a Wells Fargo close down on us just recently. So, I mean, that's really my introduction, which is amazing, to be winning the John F. Kennedy Award from Harvard School of Government, and yet I've avoided a lot of the political interests that you're talking about. That I believe that me going with a very prestigious U.S. Senate title, but only accountable to local communities, is a wonderful historic opportunity for our nation. But more importantly, it allows me to tell you I'd actually have no problem protecting the your tax status, your nonprofit tax, because no one has built me from the financial sector. We are literally free of that type of pressure. Now, you're exactly right. It's going to rain hard and heavy from Washington, D.C. But my political career thus far has been built by normal people. And for the incredible rise for the voters in New Mexico to have a real choice that is truly interest-free from Washington, D.C., really my argument to you legally and as a policy position, we have a better opportunity at batting back those interests because you're electing someone truly from the state auditor position that's in a position of public trust where every day of the week, all I do is protect assets. And somehow I've been able to come into the political consciousness not having to maybe dance with those groups. And so I think it wouldn't be a problem for me to protect that status. And I would argue for you today that it could be one of the great perfect storms that if you look at the senators throughout the country, the 50 to 100, you'd probably have one of the most influential U.S. senators on that position because we truly are elected in a wave of democratic support from the people of New Mexico. So, to me, that's exciting. Now.
Hi, Hector. Thank you for coming this afternoon. I need to ask or kind of make the same comments I did with the other two candidates. I was reading your federal questionnaire, and I see that under your business lending, you say basically with bank consolidations and limits on credit union business lending, small businesses in particular lack adequate access to the capital they need to survive and grow, and relaxing limitations on credit union business lending will allow credit unions to fill this void in the financial marketplace. I just want to thank you for that comment. I'm a small business owner myself, and just recently retired from the city, came to find that the credit union has really been instrumental in helping me to move forward in that. And I certainly appreciate that comment in your questionnaire.
No problem. I think the history of the credit union is well deserved.
Well, now that I'm Larry Ledon, by the way, I'm from a small credit in Santa Fe. And now that you said your wife's a teacher, we actually service teachers in Santa Fe, parts of Northern, and we really service strictly school employees, teachers, custodians, whatever. But, they're experiencing a lot of problems up there, budget-wise and stuff. And I know that you being in Washington are out there, but maybe you can share how you feel about public school system in general and maybe No Child Left Behind. What's that's kind of impacted, how that's impacted us. It's impacted my membership.
Sure. You know, I'm real concerned about it is going to take kind of almost in a crazy, innocent-like way, a crazy, innocent U.S. senator to really take on the fiscal crisis that the federal government is experiencing. And I don't think around the country, elected leaders have been very frank with the current condition. I can speak with you, we started off looking at the nation just strictly on our financial statements, and I had to tell you whether or not we were on the right track. I mean, there are some real historical crisis points that I'm worried about, and because there's been an inaction and an irresponsibility to be frank with the fiscal direction, and I know you get a lot of pressure. I mean, I read from your questionnaire about just fairness in examination. We do that for a living in terms of auditing. Who's watching the watchdog, so to speak. But there has not been a lot of political honesty coming out of Washington, D.C. on the real crisis that we're facing. And so I want to just tell you out of much respect for my community, the issue of education is feeling now the pressures of a lot of that fiscal irresponsibility for the last couple of decades. And we cannot continue to finance our operations the way we do, the way we have. And I'm real worried when my wife gets a pay cut indirectly because her benefits go up. And for us, that's cash flow. It's $110 a month that we have less to go to our kids and to our expenses. So